Hi, everybody. Thor Oechsner from Newfield, New York. There are farmers right near Ithaca, where Cornell University is. We're right in the southern Finger Lakes. So we're going to talk a little bit about buckwheat. My area is a traditional buckwheat growing area. We grow probably 300 acres of buckwheat every year. Buckwheat got its name from a German word, Buckwheat, which means beech wheat, and that has to do with the shape of the leaf. It's just like a beech leaf. It's a really old crop, first noted in China. They make a lot of soba noodles out of it. That's still a good market. Moved to Europe in the Middle Ages, America in the 17th century, and really 2/3 of the buckwheat that was grown in the nation was grown right in New York, Pennsylvania in the early 20th century. And my county in particular was the largest buckwheat growing county in the nation and had the largest number of bees in the nation during that time. So it's sort of, for my area, I guess, a traditional crop. So there's some things about buckwheat that we really like. I mean, in the rotation, we would call it a very light feeder, does not like a lot of fertility, is really good at building soil tilth. Lines us up for a possible no-till that, if I can talk fast enough, we'll get to at the end, and is a really good smother crop, and is also a really good disease break crop. It has no diseases associated with any of the cash crops that we grow, corn, soybeans, wheat, and all that. And it's also, for us in our rotation, and I'll talk about this more in my keynote tomorrow, it's really good as a smother crop, and this is where in our rotation we take care of those really hard to get rhizomatous weeds that are really difficult to take out in an organic rotation. And in our rotation, it goes in and allows us to bare fallow after corn or a brassica stubble. So we usually chisel plow with a set of ridge till sweeps to take either in the corn stubble or the brassica stubble, and then we go through a bare fallow period, and that's basically not allowing the weeds to photosynthesize and thus drawing down the root reserves and the rhizomes to try to kill it. Weaken it is really what you start doing. And so in terms of seeding buckwheat, usually goes in mid-June to early July. This buckwheat's very sensitive to blasting, which means the flowers actually will not put up seed if it gets too hot. So you got to be careful when you plant it. I'm not sure in the Midwest when the planting date exactly would be. I'm guessing in Wisconsin it might be close to where we are in New York. In terms of seeding rate, for if you're going to combine it for seed, I wouldn't go over 35 pounds. If you're doing it as a cover crop, 50 pounds is fine, or if you're using it as a forage, inch and a half for depth. It's really tolerant of low fertility, doesn't even like too much N, the crop will go over. It really, really doesn't like wet feet. If you plant it and you get a really heavy rainfall, you're going to have a horrible buckwheat crop, and that happened to us this year. Each time I tried to plant it, it really rained. So you got to sort of, if you see a big rain coming and you want to get it in, wait, because you'll be real disappointed. So crusting can be a problem too if you have crusty soils. We go in and pack afterwards, because as you'll see with harvest, this might involve some swathing, which we don't. I'm in a stony area. And really, once you get the crop in, unless you get a lot of rain, you sit back, have a beer, put some pork chops on the grill, because you're done. That thing's just going to take off and grow. And in that respect, it's a really low-stress crop, and I kind of like it. There's it coming up out of the ground, and the great thing about buckwheat, you get it in right, it comes out of the ground like wildfire. I mean, there's no weed that can keep up with this stuff. It comes up in canopies over the ground just in an amazing way. I mean, I've never seen anything that can do quite what buckwheat can in that regard. So it's at full bloom in 6 weeks. So if you want to take it down as a cover crop, now's the time to kill it. Otherwise, you might get into a little bit of volunteer problems. You can bale it and make nice forage out of it. We've done that, and the dairy farmer who bought it from us tested it. It tested better than his alfalfa hay. So it can be made into a really nice forage. Has to be put in a TMR because on its own isn't particularly palatable to cows. There's a nice picture of the flower. It's a drop-dead beautiful crop. I mean, when we plant it, everybody loves having it around. All the neighbors comment on it. And I love growing it. So really the bugaboo and where people just absolutely screw this crop up is harvesting it. And every time I talk about buckwheat in New York, everybody rolls their eyes and thinks I'm an idiot because nobody likes growing it. And I got to that point too until I figured out how to harvest it. So that's why I've got this in here, because if you're gonna do it, you gotta harvest it right. So there's two ways to go. You either direct combine it, which is what most guys try to do in my area, and that's either done after a frost, or you can do it after all the leaves have fallen off if you're really careful about setting your combine, and I'll talk about that. That method is really risky, and you can have a lot of yield loss, because what buckwheat is an indeterminate. So an indeterminate crop means it doesn't just die and senesce like a wheat plant or a corn plant. It sets most of its seeds, and then it keeps flowering and keeps flowering and keeps flowering until a frost comes along and kills it. So you can get really late into the fall, and at that point those lower seeds start falling onto the ground, and you can lose quite a lot of your yield. The other problem is lodging. You get a storm and it can knock it over. Deer and turkey really like it, and you know, combining it this way, you can get the combine plugged up. And sometimes it'll get too late for us to put our winter grain in after it, so that's what we like to do. That's kind of what it looks like at the earliest phase you would want to combine it. The leaves are just starting to come off. That's more what you're looking for, where if you can get it to where the stems are a little bit brown, but there's still some green in it, you can get that through the combine. There's us cutting some direct. That's kind of what it's going to look like in the tank. There's going to be a lot of green pieces of stem that come in there, and you're just going to have to clean that out later, because you know it's hard. The buckwheat's fairly light, so anything heavier is going to be hard to blow out. And don't put a chopper on it if it's green. That's us with the straw walkers packed with green material that didn't go through the chopper. So we were there for about 3 hours cursing and swearing, trying to pull you can see the chopper in the back of my pickup truck, so don't make that dumb mistake. I already did it for you. And this is the problem if you wait on direct combining, is the lodging. You see that stuff is flat as a pancake, and that's just a total miserable deal to try to pick that up. There's us cruising along at a half mile an hour, picking up stones and doing some more cursing. The much preferred method, and once we started doing this is where we started making money growing buckwheat, is to swath the stuff. So about the 10th week, we don't wait for anything. We just knock the stuff down on the ground with the swather. We're looking for about 70 to 75% of the seeds to be brown. Some of the seeds are still going to be green in there. The interesting thing about it is once you swath it and get it in the windrow, the plant, it's not like hay where it sits and dies. It stays alive for about a week in the windrow and continues to mature the seed. And the beauty of that is the deer don't eat it. It doesn't shatter. It just sits there and finishes up. And it doesn't rot like you would think hay does when it sits on the ground. The first time I swathed it, I was totally freaked out. I went out and bought a hay inverter because it wasn't getting dry and it had rained on it and snowed on it. Don't worry about it. It's going to be totally fine. Just relax. It's kind of a weatherproof crop once it's on the ground. And you'll get very few volunteers this way. The key is we start swathing about 2:33 in the morning when there's a heavy dew, and we swath till about 10. Once it starts drying off, you stop, because otherwise it's going to shatter. So that's about what you want it to look like. How much time have I got there? I got 2 minutes. All right, we're going to keep talking. That's about what you want the head to look like. You can see there's still a little bit of green in there. There's the swather. For any of you who don't know what that looks like, it's got a couple of belts. There's the swath buckwheat sitting on the ground in the fall, drying out. There's me having a beer because I just swathed my buckwheat and I'm so relaxed. This wasn't after the first year I swathed it. Chickens are relaxed too because they're happy about the. So there's the buckwheat in the windrow after about a week or so. You can see it's starting to change. The leaves will dry out first. There's about a week and a half or so. You see it's starting to dry down. And there's about where you want to go in there with your swather and pick it up. So if you can get it to that point, if you can be patient, drink enough beer, have enough barbecues, it goes through the combine like smoke. It's totally easy. You pick it up. You want to set your combine air with a test weight. If you got a test weight, something that checks the test weight, set it for about 46 pounds. 48 pounds is buckwheat's test weight. So 46 pounds, you'll have a little bit of light material in there. The things most guys screw up on this is it's hard to tell the blank seeds. There'll be a bunch of blank seeds and seeds that are full. So you look at it in your hand and you think you're getting a lot of buckwheat, but there's a lot of blanks in there, and that's where the test weight will really tell you how you're setting your combine. So there's us picking it up. If it's nice dry straw, you run it through the chopper, chop it back on the field, and that's about what it should look like in the tank. And we go in, and this is where this is the no-till that has really worked well on our farm. We go in right after that buckwheat, in a nice clean field. We got that buckwheat stubble on there, and we'll no-till rye in. We no-till wheat right into that. It works. I have had nothing but success with this, but I'm sure that statement will come to bite me in the ass. But so as John said, with rye particularly, check your seeding depth. You'll decrease your rye yield by 1/3 by planting it too deep. It's very sensitive to planting depth. And that's about what it looks like when we no-tilled it. And to me, that's kind of a perfect seed bed. And buckwheat leaves the soil very soft. And it's very easy to no-till into that. And there'll be very few weeds in there because we've taken care of them during our bare fallow period. And we've had buckwheat there to shade the soil out so nothing is grown. Any summer annuals that come up are going to winter kill very quickly. Of course, you have your moments where it gets too weedy, and sometimes if the field, we haven't gotten good weed control on it, the buckwheat crop hasn't come up good because maybe we planted it before a rain or we screwed something up, we'll go through and hit it and then go in with a min-till drill and plant our wheat or rye into that. So, you know, the no-till's not going to work every time, but nothing works every time in farming as far as I've been able to tell. And there you can see that's what the seed bed looks like. There's lots of straw and stuff from the buckwheat. It's really kind of a pretty, there you can see all that buckwheat straw in there with that no-tilled. And those are like little pipettes that pulls water into the soil. They act as like little straws. So we'll frost seed clover into there, get our rye up. And then here we got our nice clover crop if we're lucky with our frost seeding, which usually we are, and that's the end of it all. So.